Welcome to a new episode of Fic Fiction, a magical bookish podcast for chaotic story goblins. This week we are headed back to Forks, but this time in the most angsty, slightly Victorian way possible. That's right, we're talking Midnight Sun. If you didn't know, that's the events of Twilight from Edward's perspective. And also, in my opinion, the best thing Stephanie Meyer ever wrote. Spoiler alert, though, one of us DNF'd, one of us never got around to the reread, and the other one was left all alone. Get ready for some chaos. We're your hosts, Crimson,
Molly, and Emmy.
All right, how are we doing
Oh,
Hello, girlies.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I feel like that opening was very clear who hadn't read the book, because Emmy, I feel like if your eyes rolled any further back into your skull, they'd pop out and roll across the floor.
Well.
My
eyes were looking, once I reached the page that I reached, my eyes were looking anywhere but Midnight Sun. We were looking into the actual sun, just trying to blind ourselves to avoid reading the rest of this book.
Well, we have the whole episode to talk about how much you apparently hated it. However, how are we doing this week? How are you this week, Emmy?
I am doing good. I feel like I've come on the podcast the last couple of weeks and I've been like, everything is awful. Everything is shit. Nobody talks to me. But I've been doing good. I took a little bit of a social media break. So I had, for like 2 days specifically, I know 2 days doesn't seem like a long time, but it was for me. And during like the work days, between working hours, even on my lunch breaks, I'm trying to not go on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, like any of it, which seems to be, I'm doing okay. I'm doing a lot better. I also am now reposting on YouTube. I missed a week and a bit because I was just not feeling it, but I'm back online. I have read 2 books this week. We're vibing. We're doing well. Yeah. How are you guys?
Great to hear. Molly?
I have taken over from Emmy. Everything sucks.
Oh no, it's always gotta hit one of us.
Everything sucks and the world is on fire and nobody talks to me. Effectively. Yeah. I finished 2 books so far this week. I have had a spicy week, and not in a good way. So
you finished 2 books this week.
I have finished 2 books so far.
That will sound very good to most people, but for you, that's very concerning. That's cause for concern.
Yeah,
look,
it's a lot.
It's only Thursday.
That's true.
In my defense, that's okay. So yeah, 2 books. Yeah, just surviving but not thriving.
I hear you.
What about you, Crimson? How are you?
I would say I'm somewhere in between. So I had the stomach flu last week. It was probably the worst medical experience of my entire life, I would say. It was pretty bad. I don't think I've ever experienced nausea or diarrhea of that caliber before. Like, I've been in some pretty bad spots, but that was like real rough. Like, really, like,
says we don't share on this podcast.
Couldn't even sleep. So yeah, not a fun time. But then I felt better, and personal life wise, and work and everything like that has been going really, really well. So no real complaints there. But there is, of course, as an American, even living in another country, like a continual sense of existential dread at literally everything in the news. And I'm very concerned. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm not an alarmist person. I'm very pragmatic, but I think it's going to be pretty hard to come back from this 4 years. We're only like 6 weeks into it, and it's
mess.
It's not exactly the America I grew up with. Let's just say
it's a mess.
I have a real hard-hitting question for you, Crimson.
Sure.
Because I have to know.
Okay.
What's the Iron Flame progress?
Girl, I knew you were going to ask me that. I read like 2 chapters. I'm at chapter 50 now. I read the most famous spicy scene from that book. And
When did you
actually,
start Iron Flame? Like, when did you actually
we don't need to talk about that.
No comment.
at Christmas?
You
Maybe.
know, I still have my Fifth Amendment rights for now, so I would like to exercise those. What I will tell you is that I got to this place. I think what it is like I am not a person who just reads purely for escapism. Like there's certainly escapism, but I am noticing the content of everything that I read. And so Iron Flame is hitting like really close to home is really a piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a little difficult when the news is so intensely full of propaganda. And when I'm like hearing especially Trump supporters saying things like, "Oh, but he doesn't really mean it." And then I'm literally watching what he's doing. I'm like, "Am I in Iron Flame? Do I get a dragon soon? Like what's going on?" So it's yeah, I don't know. I think there's a bit of that. And then also for a while, I was really stuck right in front of chapter 48, which by the way, I should have known because chapter 48 is my favorite chapter in A Court of Mist and Fury, and Yaros is an SJM fan, and this is the second book, so like fucking of course.
Mhm.
But I literally stopped because Violet is feeling really jealous and annoyed. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I literally stopped like paragraphs before the really great spicy scene for like 2 weeks. It
You
was
literally
crazy.
edged yourself.
I literally did, and I had no idea. And then I was so angry, like you guys know, like I was like, "This is your fault." Because nobody told me that I could have been.
Well, we're not allowed to tell you these things. This is a rite of passage that you have to find out for yourself.
I know, and so therefore I have to get fake mad at you. That's just how it
Yeah.
works.
But never real
Speaking
mad.
of,
No, never.
speaking of propaganda,
Yeah.
did you all see that Mummy Pig from Peppa Pig's pregnant?
Wild. Absolutely wild. Yeah.
I don't live in a world where I find out Peppa Pig news.
Mate.
No.
So, Peppa Pig's mother, Mummy Pig, because she doesn't have her own original name, is
No.
Prego. She's pregnant. And
Okay.
I have so many
100%,
questions.
it's a government tactic. It can't not be.
Is Peppa Pig sponsored by the government?
Probably.
No, but is it not made by the BBC?
It
And the
is.
BBC
I have
are
many questions, okay?
Hmm.
First of all, they live in Pepperville or Pepperworld. Is Pepper named after the village they live in, or is the village named after Pepper? Is she a celebrity? Second of all, they live in a 2-bedroom house.
Well-
George and Pepper already share the same room. Where are they going to put the new one? And they only have a 4-person cast. So I'm going to say this was really bad planning on behalf of Mummy Pig. Also,
Well, who says it's planned? It could be a happy mistake.
true. Also, she had a sonogram. So,
The cartoon character had a sonogram?
yeah, and she was on the news, babe.
Oh yeah, this was like the
They
British
interviewed her.
Y'all treat Peppa Pig like Elmo. I always forget. Okay.
So she was on the news with a sonogram, which means that they have doctors and animal gynecologists in their universe that perform sonograms.
Did you
And-
see what
Well-
Liam Gallagher said about Peppa Pig recently?
Wait. I do want to say, I think the most likely scenario is that the town is named after a famous historical figure named Peppa, and that Peppa is named after that figure. That's what I think.
I think Peppa runs that bitch.
She does. Peppa is that girl.
Isn't Peppa a child?
She's also mean.
Yeah. She also can't whistle.
Yeah.
Well, neither can I, okay?
I don't think
You put your lips together and blow.
Blow. This is all I got. I can.
I think it's time
That's
to put the phone down on Crimson.
So funny. So funny. But did you see what Liam Gallagher said about Peppa Pig earlier?
No.
This was recent. He basically had this like tweet moment about like Oasis's like upcoming reunion.
Of course.
Basically stating that like multiple people, like he said, like SpongeBob can't join the band because he's like back on drugs. Probably sold to him by Kermit the Frog, and then said Peppa was allowed to join the band
They're getting weird demographics there. Obviously, the Oasis tour is basically the Taylor Swift Eras tour, but for our dad's generation.
Yeah. It's very like
But where are
ultra
they
millennial coded.
Where are they going with Pepper? Are they trying to get like the dads
Oh,
involved?
no, I can explain this. Because
Go for it,
yeah,
Belle.
no, that is wise. It's definitely because it is aimed like Oasis is like people who are between like 5 and 15 years older than me. Like I'm 35. They all have kids. They have all gone through a Peppa Pig era. So they're like
So, yep.
dads will think this is funny and cute and they'll show their kids. Like
They're going to
that's what
have,
I think.
honestly, I am kind of shocked and I'm not concerned, but I'm just waiting for the influx of parents that are going to have to explain the facts of life to their children. Because I've got nieces and nephews, and my sister-in-law turned around at the dinner table the other day. She messaged me to tell me. And she was like, Mummy Pig's pregnant. And my nieces and nephew were like, what? How?
Oh, that's
So there's going to be all these kids that are like, how did that happen?
well, but there's
I have
a
like
daddy pig, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, when a mommy pig and a daddy pig really love each other, sometimes the stork comes and puts a baby in the belly, and then you can go to the doctor's office and they can see it.
They're animals, and that would make it like
Doesn't
human
matter.
trafficking.
Doesn't really matter. Kids don't know what human trafficking is. I'm from the Bible Belt. You can explain anything in the dumbest terms possible. You totally can. It's just like I was in the hospital room when my brother was born and still was convinced that the stork brought babies. Like they're
But they're animals. So if a stork brings a baby,
but that's
I
fine. He
have
just
a
brings
new
it like in a little
question.
package.
oh Christ, hello, yep, go for it.
I have multiple thoughts about the mummy pig thing. Just before
Yeah.
we get on to Twilight, right? The first one
Yeah.
is this is clearly a ploy by the government because of the cost of living crisis. No one's having kids as much right now, and they're trying to get people to have more babies. And what better way to get babies is to have your kids go, Mummy, Daddy, I want a new brother and sister, like Mummy and Peppa Pig did. Anyway, moving forward. Pigs usually have like babies in bulk, right?
Well, but
Yeah, they
So
also
like, what
but
sort of like
they
genetic
also don't
mutation
live
does
in
Mummy Pig have, where
houses.
she's only just like popping one out and go? Also, I figured out that Peppa. I just googled this. Peppa lives in Peppa Town, which is in London, beside a canal, according to Google.
but that doesn't answer the question.
You know, it doesn't.
I think you guys are expecting a lot of logic out of a kids' cartoon. I would also say that like it may be true that they want more people to have babies, but typically that's kind of a far right agenda because most of the time when you have a cost of living crisis, you actually want your country to have less babies until you get a handle on the economics because it just causes a bigger cost of living crisis.
Bluey doesn't make me question things like this.
No.
I'm going to be honest, Peppa Pig still doesn't make me question things like this, like at all. I'm not worried. I'm not worried about this.
Bluey makes me cry, but Bluey explains things well. Bluey tries to heal my inner child.
You know, the
Peppa
only
gives me
case
anxiety.
I'm still concerned about the fact that Rocco is a rock, okay? Like, I'm not ready
That blows
for
my mind as well.
all these newfangled situations. Speaking of characters who may as well be rocks, should we talk about Twilight?
We should. Yeah, let's move away from whatever the hell that introduction was.
Yeah, I don't know how we're gonna get around that, honestly. This has been
I
like
have
20
lots
minutes
of
episode.
feelings, okay?
We just have lots of feelings about Peppa Pig. Like, leave us
Oh my
be.
god.
Speaking of pigs
Yeah.
and pig's ears, what the fuck did I just read?
Girl.
Nothing, apparently. Nothing. You didn't read anything. You read
Okay,
how many
right.
pages? How many pages?
I was
Sorry,
right. Okay.
how far did you get
Right.
into it?
Right. I think I gaslit myself because I was convinced that I read like 40% of this book, right? Like
Yeah.
in my head, I was like, I feel like I've been reading this forever. There's so many words, there's so many pages. I'm just reading, and I'm not getting anywhere. How many pages does this book have?
I'm looking right now for you. 817.
You didn't even get
Yeah.
You got like of the way in.
I read 100 pages. I actually think I read 99. I don't even think I read 100.
Oh,
Let me
girl.
pop. Okay,
It
99
was 99
divided
too
by
many.
8, 17. You. Oh no, that's incorrect. I put a 1 in front of that. That was way too generous. 12%. You made it to 12%. Well done, babe.
Thank you.
You missed out on so much.
I can't. So
So
you didn't even get to the
much.
meadow.
You didn't even.
don't
That's
think
the best part. That's my
I
favorite
don't
part.
think I'm bothered enough to
Is
really
Edward
care
even
about what I
back
missed out
yet?
on. I don't think he left. Hold on.
I'm sorry, what?
What do you mean you don't think he left?
Oh no, he's back.
The whole point is that he leaves and then he comes back because he.
There's just so much internal monologue and bullshit.
So, okay, he already smelled her and thought about killing everybody in the class?
Yeah. And then
Okay.
he's been back. He's back.
It looks like he's just back.
So it's just past the bit where they're all sitting around the table. And
Oh,
they're
for
like, "You're in love with
literally
her."
just
But
back.
he's not even in love with her yet.
Yeah.
So you didn't read anything to do with the plot at all, actually.
No. Mm-mm.
Okay, well,
You missed so much.
I don't know how we can discuss Edward's
I don't think
brain.
I think you can discuss.
You
all
don't
you
even
want.
know him.
You don't. You only know him at his
I-
worst moment. That's literally
I
it.
don't
You
want
literally
to know
don't
him.
deserve him at his best.
I don't want him
I
at
don't
his
know.
best. I don't want
Nobody.
him full stop.
Yeah, but you're not just missing out on him.
I know.
I'm okay with this. I do not have to be involved in everything.
But you're missing out
Girl.
on Carlisle. Carlisle's so good in this book.
The
Raw.
fanfiction
Next
is good.
question. Yeah, but
I don't need book Carlisle. I've got fanfiction.
you do.
No. Fanfiction Carlisle.
Not that I'm reading the fanfiction either, to tell you the
I
truth. I don't really
know,
have
you're
anything
not.
to do with
You're
this franchise
definitely-
ever.
I think you just are a hater, and I don't understand. I respect it, but I don't get it.
God love you, babe.
So,
but
I didn't mind the first Twilight book. I'm excited to read New Moon.
you are gonna hate it.
Okay,
You're gonna hate it.
Can I just point out a slight pattern that I am starting to notice?
Oh god, yeah.
Because
Therapist Crimson coming out.
I do not think it is true that you didn't mind the first book. You complained so hard about
Mhm.
Twilight.
If I
You hated
it, if
You
I hated it, I wouldn't have finished it. I was interested enough to keep going. Like I could like
But you already knew the plot. Like, what do you mean?
like
I'm so confused.
I don't know how to explain it in a metaphor, but like the car was burning, but I'm still okay to drive.
That metaphor is perfect if you'd continued on with Midnight Sun.
Yeah, that is how
I
Midnight Sun
couldn't.
feels.
I couldn't. Do you know what? I just couldn't. I couldn't do it. I'm sorry.
There is quite literally cars on fire in Midnight Sun.
There
Sue me.
are. Okay, I have a real question though. I hear you. I hear and I did say, for the record, like we're giving her shit, but I really did say, like, if you're not having fun, then DNF it. You shouldn't.
Yeah.
You're not having fun.
One of my goals this year was
But-
to not read books that I'm not interested in anymore.
Right, but
But you're also wrong.
I have
So
a question. But I have a question, which is, what did you not like? Like, what made you dislike it?
So
she doesn't
So
know
I-
because she only got 12%.
listen. You know what you're getting? 12% of my attention after this, you little bitch.
Probably because you won't know what we're talking about.
No, probably. So right, there's things there's things that I did like. Like I liked seeing behind the scenes of like what's not included in the normal book, right? Or what I've read, obviously. But part of me is like I may go back and finish it at some point, but it's not gripping me right now because I've got more important things that I want to read. There's more things there that I actually do want to pay attention to. And I didn't like how like stream of conscious it was. like, I find that incredibly boring, just listening to someone's internal monologue, like, over and over and over and over and over again, and I'm just like,
Mm.
I can't, like, I find it really difficult to read and get through, and I feel like if it had been set up almost like Twilight, I know it's Twilight from Edward's perspective, whatever, but it wasn't plotty, if that makes any sense. Like, it was very much like a running commentary rather than like an actual, like, I don't know.
We
Okay,
should have
wait.
done the tandem.
Yeah, I think we should comment for a second. I mean, that's totally valid, but I think we should comment for a second on what this book is, because I think
Mhm.
maybe there's a misconception when people who haven't read it read it. Because
Mm,
the thing with this book is we waited for so long, like, for this,
so
that, like,
long.
most of the people that read Midnight Sun when it first came out, and Stephanie knew this would be the case, had already read Twilight potentially dozens of times and
Mm,
Mhm.
dissected, like, the fandom had already dissected every little detail, like, every tiny thing. We had the illustrated guide already.
mhm,
So I think, like, that's actually kind of the whole point of the book, and if you really hated the stream of consciousness aspect, then I don't know that you should go back to read it, because honestly,
mm,
that's the point, is that you're a person reading this who knows every detail of the plot from Bella's perspective. And so until there are points in the plot where they diverge, like when Bella's passed out and they're looking for her, there's not going to be new plot. Like, there really
mhm,
isn't. It's really just what he is thinking while all of these points in the plot are happening. And you do get like
Mhm.
little things that are really cool, like seeing how the family's acting, seeing what the family thinks about everything. But like, it's still all from the stream of consciousness of Edward, and that's often how he interacts with people because of his gift as well.
There's also like so much nuance that you get. So I
Yeah.
think it's quite poignant in terms of you get to see how Bella thinks in Twilight and the things that she thinks are important. But at Midnight Sun, you see everything, like even the stuff that she was just like, this isn't like, why do you care? So particularly in relation to her interests. So she obviously in Twilight he spends days asking her questions about what she loves and the things that she enjoys doing and what's her favorite place, what's her favorite book. And
Mhm.
Bella doesn't highlight any of that because she finds it boring. She doesn't think she's
Yeah.
interesting. But in Midnight
Mhm.
Sun, he's like, she
He's
loves
fascinated by
this.
her.
He's fascinated. She loves this book. I've never read it, so I'm going to read it. And it becomes his favorite book. And oh, this is her favorite movie. And she loves this. And, this is why Arizona is her favorite place. And this is her favorite flower. You get all of this stuff that you didn't get in Twilight.
Yeah. I
And
also, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
no, you're gone.
Well, I was gonna say, I think another interesting thing, like to the same point, is that the writing in Midnight Sun is very indicative of Edward's personality, just like the
Mhm,
writing throughout the saga is indicative of Bella's personality and her changes, because like it's the same plot, but Twilight is only 400 pages.
mhm,
And and
Mm.
the way Edward sees Charlie and Bella's like inability, like their ability to kind of block him out, is like um he at first assumes like, well, they're not thinking that much or something. But like,
mhm.
I actually think in Bella's case, that's kind of true in comparison to Edward, not because Edward is smart, but because Edward is overthinking and like having major anxiety about literally every tiny detail. And Bella is not. Bella is super decisive.
See, I actually made a comment, like on my Kindle when I was reading. I made a note and I was like, oh my God, Edward has ADHD. Because
He does.
so
It's so
so
true.
Oh
there's a
my
there's a
god.
moment in I think it's when he's in her room and or when he's holding her in the meadow, one of those two things, and he's doing math problems and like how many bugs are in the meadow and
That's the meta, yeah.
oh there's this fish in the river and it's this kind of genus and it's only found here, and he's also at the same time humming a song
Yes.
and doing something else. So I'm like just like, this is ADHD. There's
Yeah, and it's
I
made
have
out
an
to be.
ADHD man.
Yeah, and it's like it's made out to be like, oh, it's because he's a vampire, but it's like, no, that is an ADHD vampire though, because that is like
Yeah.
ADHD times 1,000, and that is 100% how ADHD people act and like think and like, well, yeah, I mean, I mean, you and I both know because we both have ADHD, men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just wild the way his brain works.
Oh, I'm
And
just realizing, is that why I'm so attracted to Edward? Is that part of it? Because I just like that. Anyway,
I mean, he's just
because
not impressed.
even when it's annoying, I actually find it kind of adorable,
Endearing.
charming. Yeah.
But, like, maybe as well. Maybe I didn't enjoy it this much because I hated Edward in Twilight. Like maybe I'm just like
Mm.
maybe it's just like, oh, I don't want to deal with like Clinky Clank Man. Like I just can't.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I'll never understand that because I have always been enamored with him from the first like page, but sure.
Mm.
There are so many things about him that draw me in.
Yeah. Not necessarily in a healthy way, but for
No.
sure drawn. I think anyone, I mean, to be fair, Edward is written to be the perfect boyfriend for a woman with super bad mommy issues. And I mean, hi.
We've got him.
It's me. Hi.
It's me.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean,
For real.
it's funny because even he recognizes that. And there are so many moments throughout the book where he's just like, what's wrong with you?
Oh my
Like,
God, that's my favorite thing about this book is that
why?
he is constantly like, this woman is crazy. Like, I'm in love with her, but this woman is absolutely
There's something
insane.
deeply wrong with her.
Yeah. And I actually think, so Stephanie Meyer has said that she would never write New Moon from his perspective because it would be
Crushed.
too depressing because he was literally suicidal in New Moon. And that makes sense. But I also think there's an aspect of it would be too depressing because like literally the only news he could possibly be getting in Italy is like about all of the dangerous things happening to Bella constantly at her own. So he's got to just be a total mess the whole time because he's trying to do the right thing even though it's misguided, and then he's like, oh fuck, like she's gonna die without me, and so he's probably wrestling with that constantly.
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things that we learn from Midnight Sun that we didn't know before, obviously Midnight Sun was leaked initially years ago, like well over a decade, if not two at this point.
Pieces of it, yeah.
And it was leaked online and she stopped writing it. She was like, I'm not going back to this. So she ended up sharing it herself on her website. And the first, I think up to first sight, so there were 12 chapters, either 10 or 12 chapters that were linked. And we didn't have any of the information past that point. And the biggest thing that we learn is Edward was planning to leave Bella well before New Moon, well before everything that happens at her birthday. It was already planned. And he went to prom knowing he was going to leave her.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a bit of a dick move.
He wanted to give her a prom.
He wanted this one thing that he knew that she wouldn't do otherwise. And he was like, okay, one day she will be married, she'll have children. And I don't want it to turn around, like her to have to turn around and go, I didn't go. I want her to turn around and say, yeah, my boyfriend took me to prom and I had like this great time. And she'll be able to tell her kids about that.
Yeah, because the thing is about Edward, which I actually think is kind of understandable, to be honest, is like the one thing he really doesn't believe about Bella is how serious she is about him. Like, he really is like, you're a teenager. You have a finite lifespan. I'm obviously not going to change you because that's what he thinks at the time. You obviously are just feeling a whim, like I'm in love with you, but there's no way you actually feel this deeply about me as well. It's not possible. And so he just assumes like I need to be the perfect like high school boyfriend for her, and then this has to pass. And then once she's endangered, he's like, okay, well, I can't do this. I can't endanger her at all.
And initially, he does have moments where he goes, if I could be really selfish, if I could have what I want, obviously I would change her. And obviously I want that. I want her to be with me forever. Like, I feel this deeply about her. There's nothing that's ever going to stop me from loving her and from her
Yeah.
being my entire universe. But I can't do that to her. So we get to see that, yes, he does want that. It's not like he doesn't want her to be a vampire. He doesn't want to be with her forever. He just can't do that to her.
He actually has a lot in common with Rosalie in that way, because
Yeah.
Rosalie's entire reason she doesn't like her is because she's throwing her life away. And it's like, he fucking is. Then that's crazy. Like,
So it's funny that you mention Rose because we spoke about her earlier. So me and
mhm.
Crimson were doing some reading earlier, and we were just like, okay, we should probably plan for later, but at the same time, we were just like, fuck it, we'll wing it.
Yeah.
Pretty
That
much.
seems like the usual vibe, yeah.
Yeah. So
Responsible
initially,
thought that explains.
yeah, exactly. So when Bella finds out or figures out that Edward and his family are all vampires, Rosalie and Jasper they go, we have to kill her. There's nothing
Yeah.
else we can do. We have to kill her.
She
And
has to die.
she had this girl will ruin our lives. We have to kill her. This is Rose and Jasper. And then when I guess Rosie figures out, okay, maybe she won't tell
Apparently they weren't
anyone, she
wrong.
goes, exactly. Um she figures out, okay, maybe she's not going to tell anyone. She goes, this girl can't be a vampire. She has everything I want. No. She's a
Yeah.
human. She can have children. She can't ever be changed. But I did want to kill her.
Yeah.
Like, the math isn't mathing there, hun. And
She seems very much like annoyed just at Bella's presence and existence.
she is. She's jealous.
She's also really annoyed with Edward, though, because Edward endangers them by not being able to stay away from her.
But it's not just that. It's the fact that Edward is attracted and in love with Bella, but he's
And
not
not
attractive
mhm,
and in love
mhm.
with her.
She's not used
She
to
has
anybody not being attracted to her. She doesn't want
she
him. She just wants.
she doesn't want him. She has no interest in him whatsoever. But the fact that he wasn't like immediately on when she woke up from being changed, obsessed with her and wanting to be with her, she takes his attraction to Bella as a personal insult, and she literally has tantrums about it.
Okay, I actually have a question though. It's a tangent, but isn't it interesting that the only other person that Edward ever mentions being attracted to or like speaks of in a way that indicates he's actually attracted to them is Shaban, who looks nothing like Bella at all.
Yes.
And is like a thick girl and is, yeah, just supposed to be like smoking hot. But like, it's so interesting to me that like, that's his type. Like, that's what he's into. Because,
Siobhan is mommy, okay? She is
yeah.
everything. She is like full-figured, curvy, gorgeous Irish with an accent. She's like described as like lilting, like singing. So like kind of like the female version of Hosier.
Yeah.
Kind of like, you know? And he thinks that she is stunning, like gorgeous.
Just divine. Like, he says like there's nobody that's ever been more female than Siobhan.
Ah.
Yeah, and the first
like,
thing that the first
for
time he
Edward.
meets the first time he meets her, it's Christmas, and him and Carlisle have gone for a run, and Siobhan throws herself at Carlisle and hugs him. And he's just like, oh, look at her. Like,
yeah.
Well, that's a typical guy move.
mm-hmm. But he's very sweet about it.
Yeah.
He's still a gentleman.
And it's also why it's so notable because he's very, like, he mentions that he's, like, disgusted by how most teenage boys, like, think and the way they think about women. And he's, like, so grossed out by it. And he's so proper. And he's definitely a fucking virgin. And it is crazy. And then there's this one woman that he's basically, like, the, you know, Victorian equivalent of Awuga. Like, he's just like, I can't keep it in. Like, it's so funny.
It's like there's two moments in this book where he's like that. It's that, and when he's talking to Bella and she's asking him whether he's attracted to her, and he's like, I am a man after all. I'm just like, just say you're horny.
Yeah. Like China with this girl.
Yeah, he does. Let's make
But
all those little clinky noises.
Ding, ding, ding. Like,
oh man.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have no idea who Siobhan is, by the way.
Oh.
Of course you don't. Of course
So
not.
Siobhan is the leader
Oh.
of the Irish Coven.
Yeah.
So you've watched all the films, haven't you?
Yes, I think.
Yeah. So
You
in
saw her.
Breaking Dawn Part 2,
Mhm.
she's there with
I don't
Liam.
think I've seen that.
What?
I don't think I ever went back and watched it.
Okay.
This disaster.
I'm so
Okay.
confused.
Twilight Marathon is happening in September. You are
It has
sitting
to.
there,
It
even if
has
we have
to.
to sit on you and
It's
make
only
you watch
4
it.
films, so it's not like it's not like Harry Potter where it's like 20 hours. It's fine.
A
It's
bit
just
of
4 movies.
5.
5.
Breaking Dawn
bit of a
Part 1
side-
and
Oh,
2.
you're right. It's 5.
I was gonna say there's 5 of them because I think I've seen 4. I don't think I've watched the last one.
Then you missed out on Siobhan and Liam and Maggie and Benjamin. We'll
Oh
get
my
to that when we
God.
talk about Breaking Dawn, but
And the
you missed out on
fight,
so
like
much,
the
babe.
fight is so fun. It's like the most violence we ever get. It's like crazy. It's just
Don't worry, we will talk about it and you will read Breaking Dawn. So
anyway.
Okay, and then you
And
guys can marathon
Renesmee.
me.
I
you
mean,
missed Rigatoni
you missed Rolaskata.
Oh, I've
Like,
seen the clips on YouTube.
and Renegade.
I've seen it all.
anyway.
Back to Midnight Sun.
Moving
And the worst
swiftly
C-section
back
that's
away.
ever existed on paper.
Yep.
Oh God. Anyway.
Huh. So we've spoken about Siobhan, mommy. Speaking of mommies, let's talk about his parents. Let's talk about Carlisle and Esme. These two characters kind of like crushed me a little bit in, my my mommy and daddy issue heart.
Yeah.
So we get to see more of them, obviously, because we get to see how Edward feels about them, get to see his interactions with them.
Mhm.
And I think the best place to start is Carlisle, because he's his maker. So his love for Carlisle is
Oh, it's so pure.
it's so pure.
Yeah.
And he calls him dad in his thoughts. That's his dad.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he is so scared of disappoint. Like throughout everything, he
I
just
noticed
doesn't
that at
want
the
to
start.
disappoint him. Yeah.
Not that I got very far forward at the start, but
So there's a couple of moments. Obviously, there's the first Christmas he spends with as a vampire, and he's learning to control himself. And he's kind of starting to practice going out without Carlisle. And Carlisle goes, "Okay, you go on this walk, and I'll be here when you get back." So he goes and does this walk and goes around and goes where places where humans will be. And he comes back, and Carla has gone out to the forest and cut down a Christmas tree and decorated it. And he's standing in front of this Christmas tree, and Edward walks in and he goes, "Merry Christmas, Edward."
Oh.
And
oh,
I kind of tear up a little bit because it's the sweetest thing ever. And Edward's like, most people would think this was childish, but I can see how desperate Carlisle is for a family
Mm-hmm.
that I'm just going to go with it.
Yeah.
was Edward the first?
Edward was the first.
Yeah.
So Edward was changed in 1918 when he was dying from the Spanish influenza. And his dad died first. And then him and his mum were in hospital together. And they were both really poorly. I believe Edward's mum was looking after him in the hospital, even when she was sick, because that's her baby. And she got vibes from Carlisle and asked him to save her son.
Mm-hmm.
So he did. And Edward was his first child, the first person he ever turned. And he copied the scars that he had from when he was turned. And did so to Edward, and that's been his kid ever since. That's his son.
That's so cute.
Yeah. And then eventually they find Esme, and then and Rosalie is really interesting because she finds Emmett and she's unable to do it, but she holds herself off of him even though she really wants to eat him, to drag him home to Carlisle.
She carries him over 100 miles.
Yeah. He
She's
got mauled by
covered
a
in blood.
bear.
Her like
Yeah.
dragging him through the back door of Esme's fancy house, and
Yeah.
Emmett by like his back foot, dragging him and going, "Dad, I want that one."
She carries him in her arms,
Yeah.
and
She's so strong.
she gets there, and she's like, "Save him! You need to save him." And initially, Carlisle thinks that she wants him to save him as a human, and he's like, "It's too late for that. I can't do that." And Edward is it's the first time he's ever like spoken up to do something to agree with Rosalie. Is like, that's not what she means. She wants you to change him. And Carlisle's like, "Oh,
like, yeah,
no."
because she couldn't even talk. So Edward's like reading her thoughts about what she actually means.
And Carlisle's like, "Oh, of course, like just leave the house because it's going to be too much for you."
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Esme's already decked it because like she's long gone.
Yeah.
Esme's obviously still quite young at this point. So obviously from the original books, we know that Esme knew Carlisle before she was a vampire, so knew him as a child. He was a doctor in the small town that she lived, and she fell out of a tree and broke her leg. And he set it for her, and she has been obsessed with him ever since. She's been in love with him. But he moves away. She gets
Stella
married.
1.0.
Yeah, she gets married to an abusive man, and she gets pregnant. So she leaves, but her baby is born premature and dies, and she jumps off a cliff.
Yep.
And Carlisle finds her in the morgue, like she's barely alive, but he brings her home and saves her. And they kind of have like this courtship, and it's so cute, like the way that Edward describes that she wakes up and Carlisle sees her, and he's kind of afraid to scare her, and he doesn't want to come on too strong, but Edward's like reading his thoughts and reading Esme's thoughts, and Esme's still obsessed with Carlisle. And he's just like, I had to push them together.
I need a book about those two. I would find that so much more interesting.
It's in Midnight Sun, Bub.
Yeah.
I'm not stalking through that.
Just DNF that book.
Give me page numbers.
But fine. But we also see the other part where we see kind of like Carlisle and Edward have like this relationship is when Edward goes off for his dark days, for his dark times, for his super gloomies. When he goes through his emo teenager
Super gloomy
phase, his super gloomies. So he actually gets the idea to feed off humans from Siobhan, because Siobhan makes a comment about him missing out on like the best thing ever. Like he's missing out on like true happiness or something, or like true fulfillment. And because he's obviously still a teenager, it kind of weighs on him, and he decides to leave and start feeding off humans. But because he doesn't want to be bad, because he still respects Carlisle, he chooses criminals. It doesn't last though, because he doesn't find the fulfillment that Siobhan alluded to. So he goes back, and he's terrified that they'll hate him and they'll want nothing to do with him. So he doesn't tell them. He just arrives at their house, and Esme comes running out of the door, out of this house, and is like, "My son, he's home."
Yeah. She's nothing but pure love.
She loves him. And Carlisle comes out and goes, "You're back." And he's like, "My son." I was like, "Oh my fucking God, you guys are perfect."
Yeah. I also really, because I like things that are just a little bit twisted, I love Alice and Jasper's story. Like I don't really care about Jasper as an individual, but I love like Alice woke up, didn't know who turned her, didn't know where she was. She had been in an asylum and turned by a guy who just kind of evilly turns people. And the only thing she knew when she woke up was like what her name was and that she needed to find Jasper. She just knew. And so she just went looking for him. And she just
And
saw him and
she
saw the
found him.
Cullens. And she found him, and then she saw the Cullens and knew that they needed to be with him. And I just think it's like the sweetest thing of like her only purpose in life was like, I have to find this man. This man is for me.
Mm-hmm. And it's
That's
funny
really
because
sweet.
she's really particular as well. She's like, okay, we need to turn up at the Cullen house when all the people that are there aren't going to be aggressive and will just accept what we have to say. So she waits until until Edward, Emmett, and Rosalie are out. Or Edward and Rosalie are out because she knows that she's going to have the worst time trying to convince them. So Edward returns home and Alice is there and is like, "You're my brother." And hugs them.
Yeah.
And then Edward has to explain to Rosalie. It's either Rosalie or Emmett. It goes, "This is Alice. She's our sister."
And then it's so funny because
She lives here.
the thing with Edward and Alice that's nuts that I didn't really put together until I read Midnight Sun is that Alice can see every possibility like in the future based on like what decisions people might make, but Edward can see what Alice sees like through her brain.
Mhm.
So like constantly Edward's like speaking for her because she's not really that great at like articulating it all the time. And he's like, no, like just do. And so they can do like crazy things together. Like there's this whole thing going on when they do the car chase that's like nuts and only works with their like certain powers. It's like, I don't know. They're really fun together. They're like a really cute duo.
You mentioned the car chase, and I feel obviously we're hopping around, but it kind of goes off of that point. So at one point during this car chase, so effectively the car chase happens when they're all on their way to try and save Bella. They steal multiple cars and cause pileups and car
Just absolute
crashes on the
mayhem.
freeway. Absolute mayhem. At one point, the
Carlisle's like
wing.
tranquilizing people. Like
Yeah,
It's giving Mario Kart Rainbow Road vibes.
pretty
it
much.
totally is. Except instead of mushrooms, Carlisle is like drinking people and leaving them by the side of the road. Like it's nuts.
So at one point, because of their erratic driving, they lose both wing mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
So he uses
Yes!
his siblings as the wing mirrors.
He tells them to put their head out the window, and then he just looks in their brains to see what's going on. It's so funny. It's so good.
Like you like even if you don't read like the rest of the book, you need to read the car chase, and you need to read
So funny.
and
And the
Alice clearing up.
Yes, the staging of the hotel room, also like all that stuff. Because Alice is sitting there like figuring out what they will believe and exactly figuring out how she needs to do everything. It's so funny.
It's like a 4-page manual of everything that Alice has to do to cover up what happened with Bella in the ballet studio.
It's honestly amazing that they haven't made like a Now You See Me style movie, like just about Midnight Sun, just to do this car chase and
I would
the
die.
cover up, because it would be the best like kind of comedy style heist situation that you could have. Like it's so good.
It
Yeah.
definitely gives like Ocean's 11 vibes.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I said Now You See Me because they're magicians and it's a little bit
Yeah,
silly.
I get
Like,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. But absolutely iconic. Just 10 out of 10, good vibes. So obviously we've spoken about a little bit about Rosalie. We've spoken about Alice and Jasper and Esme and Carla. I think we need to talk about Emmett. Okay, Emmett.
Sweet Emmett.
Emmett. Honestly, this book gives you everything you need to know about the best himbo that has ever existed.
He's the best. I just love him.
He is so wholesome.
Mm-hmm.
He really is.
He really is.
I like to think that Emmett and Jasper walked so Cassian and Azriel could run.
100%.
We have
Like-
spoken about it before.
Yeah. Like, I actually find it so funny when people are like, you just don't understand Cassian and Nesta since I'm not like a fan. I'm like, are you kidding me? I love Emmett and Rosalie, and that's the same damn thing. Like, you can't convince me it's not.
They copied and pasted these characters. What are you
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
So we get to see Emmett and his relationship with his brothers. So one of the first interactions you see with Emmett is him actually playing 8-board chess with Jasper. So
I forgot about the chess. Oh my god.
they
Yes.
use 8 boards to play chess together.
Because it's not complex enough for their brains. So
Because it's not complex, but they won't let Edward and Alice play anymore because Alice predicts the moves and Edward reads their minds, and Rosie just doesn't give a fuck. So they play across 8 boards, which is just wild to me.
As in,
because
like, do they play 8 games of chess at once, or do they stick 8 boards together
8
and play
boards
like a
together.
giant fucking game of chess?
it's mega chess.
Do they use all the pieces, like from all 8
yeah.
packets?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds so fun. We should play that.
I love it. That sounds like my nightmare.
That sounds
I
so
think I need to do a little bit of a retraction as well, because obviously we are Twilight girlies, me and Crimson. We have been around a while.
fun. Are we?
Me and Crimson are. We've
I'm
been
a
around
girly.
this block. You are a girly. You are a girly. But we've been around the block a few times. We have read the fan fiction. We have read the books, and I think it became fanon that Edward and Jasper were there at the meadow when Edward and Bella were having their date, and I got it into my head that it actually happened. It didn't actually happen. So
Yeah.
yes,
What? Did it
did-
not?
No.
Yeah,
So
we messed it up.
Alice,
It's fanon.
it's fanon, but
It
Alice
could have, but it's not in the
it
book.
could happen. But Alice does relay every single thing that happens whenever Edward and Bella are together to them.
So we have a new headcanon.
We do. Me and Crimson came up with it. So we like to think that Alice is telling the family what's going on, but Emmett and Jasper are doing a dramatic reenactment.
Love it.
Yeah.
Emmett,
So yeah,
Emmett
go
is
on.
playing Bella because
Obviously.
he tried to ask Jasper to, because Jasper's smaller, but Jasper said no because he's not
Jasper.
as comfortable with his manhood, so he's
Yeah.
gotta be the boy.
So Emmett is Bella, and he puts on a high-pitched girly voice. Think Merida's dad in Brave.
Yes. 100%.
Yep.
Love.
And they reenact the scene in the meadow for the family.
Mm-hmm. Carlisle is, of course, just shaking his head the whole time. Esme's delighted. Esme's just so happy she's going to have a daughter-in-law that she doesn't care. So she thinks it's sweet.
Rosalie is rolling her eyes and doesn't give a fuck because who cares about the human? And Alice is encouraging it. She's egging it on.
Yeah, naturally.
100%.
I can get behind this.
Yeah. Love them. I love them so much. And this book just solidifies how much I love these characters.
I also just love, like, Edward's humanity, I guess. Like, the fact that, like, because when you read Twilight from Bella's perspective, you just assume kind of that Edward is never nervous, never anything. And then seeing into his mind, like, he's every bit as nervous as someone would normally be when they're, like, obsessed with a girl for the first time. But also warring with his, like, vampire self, who is very logically like, this girl's nuts, what's wrong with her? So, like, it's just really, I don't know, it's just such a fun dichotomy in his head, and I love, like, kind of the humanity that she gives him.
There are so many sweet moments. Like, it contradicts everything for the rest of the series pretty much. But at the end of the book, we see Jacob come to the prom to warn Bella. And Edward's just like, I really like him. He's a good kid. He's got such a nice like mind to be in.
Well, that's before he forcibly kissed his girls.
Yes.
And then,
very
like,
true.
fuck, he's going to fuck his daughter.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of join forces.
They do.
So it kind of makes sense. Like, I think they have a natural affinity for each other. Actually, they just are pulled apart a bit by the Bella situation. Yeah.
So I have to ask Crimson, because obviously you've read more than 12%.
Yes, ma'am.
What
for duty.
Okay.
What was your favorite moment of the book that just made you giggle and think, wow, that's just perfection.
When it's
Because
finished.
fuck off. Because mine has to be the spider.
The spider.
The
Oh.
spider. So for our listeners and for Emmy, there he's in her room and she's asleep, obviously, and he sees a spider crawl out of her closet. It's just a house spider, okay? And he goes through what genus this is and research on the like whether or not this spider is venomous. And he goes, but okay, it's not venomous. It's not going to kill her, but the bite hurts, so I have to kill it. So he
Yeah.
kills the spider, and then he goes, "I'd kill all the spiders if I had to."
Yes, I forgot about that. Oh my god. I
Ew.
already thought that after. I love him. Um,
Ew.
to be perfectly honest, I think my very favorite scene from Midnight Sun has always and will always be the meadow because of his just insane like ADHD brain, man. Like I just
Mhm.
love that he like in order to remain calm around her had to occupy his brain with all of these other things. And I think I loved it so much because one of my favorite things about Edward is how human he actually is in his mind, even though he
Mhm.
thinks he's this monster, is the fact that like in his moments where he's the most a danger to her, what he actually goes to are his like sort of superhuman things in order to calm
Mhm.
himself down. And I don't know, I just think that there's something like really kind of beautiful about that, about the way that he like doesn't understand that the thing he kind of hates about himself is also in some ways like the thing that keeps him okay and the thing that actually makes him right for her because Bella is like not interested in anyone who's not a supernatural entity. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's just I just love it. I love that he's counting the insects. I love that he's counting the blades of grass. Like, it's my
He's
favorite.
singing.
He's singing.
He's
And I
singing.
also love like reading that scene in tandem with Bella's perspective because Bella is just it's so funny. Bella is like, this is the most romantic thing in the world. Like is standing still. I don't know how long we're there. He's like counting her heartbeats. Like he knows exactly.
How many bugs are in this square foot of space that we're sitting on right at this moment, and how many fish are in the stream that's nearby? Remember
Yes.
that song that we heard on the radio last week? I'm going to translate it into Latin and then back again.
Oh yeah, the translations, yes. And so I don't know. I also love that it's like this moment of like when you're with somebody, even when you have this like really deep connection with them, you could actually be having two completely different experiences, even if they're
Oh
both
yeah.
really positive experiences. And so I think that's I don't know. I just love the way she wrote that. I love that she chose to take this iconic scene, and it would have been so easy to do like something very cheesy with it. And instead, she went full unhinged, but in a way that's also kind of sweet because what he's ultimately doing is trying not to kill this woman, like because of this.
Yes. So
Yeah.
it's funny because Alice is obviously they're doing percentages. It's called The Knot, this chapter. And they're trying to obviously Alice sees lots of different potential futures. And the ones that are prominent are either he kills her or she's changed. And he wants neither. And he's trying to pick apart these threads. And we get to see him working through the percentages. So 70% she lives, 30% she dies. 75% she lives, so on and so forth. So that's happening, but we also get to see at the end it's not like he's not paying attention and that he's not also having the moment that Bella's having, because he goes at one point like, the only thing that could make this better is if I kissed her.
Yeah. Ah.
And then he
Oh,
does.
yes.
He does.
The most
I feel
chaste, closed
nauseous.
mouth, cold kiss ever, but he does.
But he parts his lips a little bit and she goes ham.
Yeah, and then she almost dies because he almost can't control it. Yep.
And then she holds her breath.
And he thinks she's so silly for doing that. And it's like, well,
Like, why are you holding your breath? You passed out.
Mhm. That's the other great thing about this book in general is just his reactions to her, like very natural reactions to his bizarre behavior. Because she's weird in a lot of ways, but she does react very normally when he does scary things. And then sometimes he's like, "Why'd she do that?" And it's like, babe, like,
Like, I 100% refuse to think that this man does not have ADHD or autism or both. Both is it's completely
I
realistic,
would say both.
honestly.
Uh-huh.
Because some of the things that comes out of his mouth or the way he thinks, I'm just like, my husband does that.
yeah, yeah, little bit.
And like, bear in mind when he obviously the power he has to read minds, typically when they have a gift, they have some element of it when they were human. So we learned that the reason that Alice was put in the asylum initially was because she was having visions. So her family put her in the asylum. So that was her, obviously, that embodiment in her human life. And Edward Edward, we're not really sure, but he does play piano as a human. And he wants to go to war. He's obsessed with going to war. He's not interested in girls, but he wants to go fight the war.
As you are.
So
Yeah.
Edward. Ugh,
It's
yeah.
so Edward.
It's just so like I don't have time. Like it just makes perfect sense to me. Like
It's perfect.
What is wrong with this man?
I think he's very much a product of every stereotypical movie about anyone from World War One you've ever seen. Like that's what's wrong with this man. He's Captain America, except he didn't get.
I was gonna say,
shot.
yeah, it's given that very starting
Yeah.
point of Captain America, the first Avenger movie, where he's like so little,
Yeah.
and he's like they've like
They
photoshopped
shoot him up. Yeah, yeah.
they photoshopped his head onto like some random like stunt double's tiny body, because the
Yeah.
head has not been shrunk to match the body size. So he's got this massive head,
I
and
feel
all he
like
wants is to go to war.
I
Yeah.
feel like that's totally what Edward feels like in his head.
Yeah. But I do think when she was writing Twilight, like originally, that was a very popular depiction of like anybody pre 1950 was that like you would have a boy who just really wanted to go to war, but like he's flat footed or something and he can't. And it's this big
But the problem with Edward was he was too young.
Yeah.
Like, he was too young.
like as if you can't lie about your age back then. But okay, whatever. It's fine. I don't.
His mom would have killed him. His mom would have beat him.
Well,
She would have taken a stick to his behind.
well, he might
Elizabeth
have
Mason would have. Oh.
And what about you though? What is it? Oh, your favorite's the spider.
I love the
Yeah.
spider. Loved it.
Spider's nice.
Iconic. I also really enjoyed him listening to Charlie. So we know that Bella has really shitty parents, but we also do get to see kind of like hope. I think that's the only way to put it, is we get to see that Charlie actually really does care about his kid, even though he's really crappy at it. You know?
Yeah,
So
he's marginally better than Renee, for sure.
So there's a point, I can't remember off the top of my head what exactly it was. I think it was before she was with Edward. And he was just noticing that Bella was a bit down, or that she was like, I don't know, not acting weird. And even though he hasn't raised a kid properly, he can still tell where they're being a bit funny. So he's like, he makes a point in his thoughts, I'll call Renee later to ask her.
Oh. That's so dad coded.
Yeah, he's like, I have no idea. I'm well out of my element. Oh, I'll call her, ma'am.
Yeah. He is really sweet. It's just like he doesn't really like take the reins as he should.
He's such an idiot. So stupid.
I do think it's partly because the mom that has raised this kid for 15 years or 17 years, whatever it is useless. And so that like the person who should be providing some support, like, hey, this is what you have to do now, like she doesn't know either, because she's just been using Bella as kind of like a
parent.
Yeah, her own parents. So it's like there was no hope, but it is kind of sad because I think Charlie wanted to do a good job, but I think he has no idea how.
He doesn't have a clue. He does not have one clue. And that's really frustrating because obviously he's not perfect. There are things that happen later in the series that you're just like, what the fuck? But he does want to try his best and he does love Bella. He just doesn't know how.
Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't know what to do, and he has no sense of like what the proper boundaries are. So he actually like thinks that Bella like deciding she's gonna drive into the middle of nowhere in the middle of the night is
It's
like
fine.
not something that he can actually stop her from. And it's like, dude, you bought that car. Take those keys. What the fuck are you doing? Like,
Which
I mean,
is mad because he
yeah.
takes the battery out of her car because she looks keyed up. It's a
Oh yeah.
Saturday night and it's after
Yeah.
their date. And he realizes, oh, she looks just a bit too alert and I'm worried that she's going to sneak out. So he unhooks the battery in her truck. Like, he
Yeah.
couldn't have done that when she was driving in the middle of the night to Arizona.
Nope.
He's a cop. He could have had her arrested.
Yeah.
You could have arrested her. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah. Could have thrown her in the holding cell. There's not going to be anybody else there in Forks, Washington.
And I think that Edward does realize this. Like, Edward sees that she has never had anyone to take care of her.
Yeah.
And he wants to. He wants to take care of her. There's a point where he goes, I should learn to cook. Because if I'm going to be around for Bella, and if we stay together and she stays human, I want to know how to cook for her because I want to look after her.
that's
So I
so
should learn to
sweet.
do that. I was like,
It is sweet. She'll never let him, but it's
no, never.
Meanwhile, Charlie's over here microwaving forks, so Bella cooks his dinner.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
I'm just
it's
assuming like he microwaved several forks before and it's fine. Like, whatever. Sometimes you
maybe it's
microwave
just
a
like
fork.
exactly. Maybe he, accidentally microwaved a wooden fork and thought all forks were safe or something. I don't know.
Tell you what, though, guys. See, putting metal in the microwave. Like, I put a teaspoon in the microwave the other day and it was fine.
Don't put metal in the microwave.
Yeah.
It was in there for like a minute and 30 and I didn't even notice and it was fine.
Well, that's just really lucky because
Don't try this at home.
Yeah, don't.
it just means it wasn't reflecting the waves in a way that did what it does. But like, don't do that.
Also, don't put grapes in the microwave
Why?
because it makes plasma.
Yeah, they
What?
superheat
They
because of their
superheat.
consistency.
Isaac keeps going, oh, if we get a new microwave, can I use this one to microwave grapes? I'm like, no. What's
Yeah,
wrong
but
with
what
you?
actually happens to the grapes, though?
They turn into plasma inside, and it'll burn the
Plasma, is
hell
that not
out of
just
you.
like mushy stuff?
It's like a different state. It's like between. It's like what lava is,
Hmm.
Oh, so
basically.
like hot liquidy solid.
Effectively, yeah.
Yeah.
But why aren't we allowed to microwave them?
Because they explode.
They'll either explode, or if they don't explode, they'll be so superheated inside that when you bite into them, you can create like third-degree burns in your mouth, I think.
Why would you eat one?
Because men.
Because you put it in the microwave. People are stupid. Like, that's literally the only reason.
There are
Okay.
people that are microwaving metal. Like, what do you expect?
I almost microwaved metal last week. We're in the same boat, girl. I was like this close. I had the door closed, and then I thought better and was like, wait a minute, I think there's a teaspoon in there.
You'll have me
I
stressed.
remember in one of my
Stressed.
ex jobs. So I've worked in like multiple restaurants and bars and things.
Mhm.
But one of my ex jobs was working in like a coffee shop, and I remember there was someone that I worked with, and she went to heat a brownie up in the microwave and put a fork in with it, but then she just turned the microwave on and left the room, and I
Mm.
had to run over to the microwave and be like, take the fork out of here.
I think the thing about working in restaurants, though, is like I'm not scared of kitchen disasters anymore because I've seen them. So it's like,
I
yeah,
am the kitchen disaster.
if I start an electrical fire, I know what to do. You gotta smother it. You can't put water on it. I get it. Like, I hope I don't, but whatever.
I haven't burnt a kitchen for you.
I haven't either.
Oh no.
I don't think I've ever started a real fire. Like, I've had a fire in a pan, but I never had one that I couldn't just, like, immediately get rid of and it didn't cause any damage anywhere.
We set fire
In a
to an
kitchen?
Amazon box once.
On purpose?
No,
Okay, honey bun.
so my grand's house is really small. It's like comically small, and my uncle's 6 foot, and he calls it the Pixie House because it's a sea cottage in St Ives in Cornwall, and originally it was built to store fish. It's like all stone, so it's really short roofs. Anyway, there's not a lot of places to put things, and I think my gran or someone put a box on the hob in the kitchen because we do use it as like counter space. But I guess the one of the things turned. Yeah.
What's a hob?
The
cooker.
hot plate, the cooker.
Ah.
Where you
But
put your pans.
where you put your pans, it's separate
So
from the
pans.
oven in my grand's house. So there's like a flat plate and then there's the oven next to it. So the box went on and I was like, do you smell smoky? The Amazon box, you know, like all that paper material that they shove in Amazon boxes?
Yeah.
Mhm.
That caught fire.
Yeah.
So Isaac, because we were dating at this point, picks up this box and hauls ass through the narrow kitchen, through the dining room and out into the middle of the street. And there's just an Amazon box on fire in the middle of like the road.
God. Oh my God.
So yeah.
I have melted a few cutting boards. I mean, even in this apartment.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
I've like put like plastic utensils.
It's really
I
annoying.
remember because we've got one of those cooker things where it's like electric. So at home, in my
Ow.
parents' house, they had one of those gas ones that actually like was on fire, and you cook your pots, you
Yeah.
cook your shit on the fire. And when I moved here, it's like all electric. So that was really weird for me.
Is it like a
Um,
flat top or the coils?
Induction?
No, well, induction is a different thing. That won't burn plastic usually because it has to have the induction in order to work. But the regular electric, if it's sometimes there's a glass like flat top or a ceramic flat top where it's just flat, like it's a surface when it's
yeah,
not on. Oh, but there's also an older kind which is electric also, but it's like a coil and it's like a metal coil that you set the pans on, like separately.
We don't really
no,
have
ours is
that.
flat. We don't have
Yeah,
those really
we
in
don't
the
have the
UK, I don't
coils.
think. It's either like gas that's actually like the fire, or it's like a flat glass. Anyway, so I moved here, it was flat glass. And I just like wasn't thinking and thought like when you turned it off it went cold.
Yeah.
Really not. It's like
Well,
it's like heated the glass up, babe. So
Yeah.
I would like put
yeah.
things on the stove and like I remember I like melted, we had like a plastic, like peppers, like bell peppers wrapped in plastic, and I set them on the plastic, melted on the bell peppers, and it was, yeah.
Well, because induction actually does. Like induction doesn't like the glass itself doesn't really heat much because it needs the like the metal from the bottom of the pan to transfer the energy. Like it just works so different. So that's the thing is like induction looks just like a flat top electric, but it doesn't work the same. They're like different. And they're much easier to control. I want an induction like so bad.
Whenever we move out, I want a proper gas hob.
I don't.
can't
More
have
than
that because
Give myself carbon monoxide or something.
yeah.
Oh,
I mean, I
yeah.
loved gas when I had it, but I wouldn't want it now because I feel like induction gives you just as much control and like again, like less carbon monoxide, less possibility of a gas explosion. Like, but also I think in Paris you're no longer allowed to have gas, and they're like trying to get rid of all the gas because climate.
Anyway, Midnight Sun.
Oh yeah, Edward and his inkiness.
Should we wrap up? Are we happy, or should we do something?
I think,
We are pretty much an hour in, I think.
yeah, I think we should wrap.
I don't have much to say. I've been the audience for this episode. Should I just like clap every so often? Yay!
Yay!
Make like audience noises.
I think it will be interesting though. Like you have a good part in the beginning. like when we're talking about why you didn't like it. I think those are all like interesting reasons. Because I actually think you not liking it has made me realize that like maybe this is a thing that like if you weren't there, it won't make sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was such a cultural phenomenon.
I feel like if you weren't part of the hype, then you probably
Won't be.
it would be hard to get that hype now.
Yeah. Because
I mean, I loved the movies as a kid.
yeah.
Like I loved the movies, but I mean, I had the books, never really bothered.
Yeah. I just think like they've actually influenced so much that it might be one of those things that like we've had so many better versions now that like going back to the original like isn't gonna hit. Maybe that's kind of it.
Because there's so many things nowadays, like I don't want to use Fourth Wing or Akatar as an example, but like that's the current big like oh my god like
Yeah, but
Yeah.
but
it
then
makes
in like
sense.
25 to 30 years there'll be books coming out and people won't have read Fourth Wing and they'll go, oh well, I don't really understand the hype around Fourth Wing, it's kind of
there's
crap
dragons
compared to this
everywhere
new
now.
spanking new phenomenon that we've got. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean,
Well, 'cause I
Twilight kind
mean,
of broke the world effectively. It was like one of the first like teen romances, like paranormal romances that really hit.
like for example, if Twilight had never existed, this wouldn't exist. Like these rom-coms about vampires. This is like this genre is able to exist, I think, because Twilight made it. Twilight was the first time I think that vampires weren't just like scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really kicked
respect
off like
it.
the vampire hype.
Yeah, I really did.
I respect it.
No one's done sparkly since then, though.
No, that was very, very niche to Stephanie Meyer, and there have been.
I don't like that.
I mean,
love it. I like
there's that.
love it.
There's that theory that they're not actually vampires; they're fairies.
Yeah, I like that theory.
Yeah,
I think they could be fae, or because it could be like it is in Zodiac Academy, where like you're fae, but you're also something else. So like,
yeah,
everything is fae. So it's like you could be a vampire, but you're fae.
yeah.
I think it's like in my brain.
Crescent City's a wee bit like that, isn't it? Like
Kind
spoilers
of,
for Crescent City for anyone who's whatever. But
Whoops.
obviously they're not gonna I'll explain it. I'll explain what I mean now that we've been like, hey guys, there's a spoiler coming, like an actual spoiler. But like when we find out that they've all like portal hopped basically into, and then we find out like the wolves were just fae, but they were shifters, like Lysandra would be.
Yeah.
Or we've got like the certain fae that came from like Prythian and whatever. So I suppose it could be a wee bit like that.
What's interesting is we never really find out where the vampires are from in Crescent City. There are vampires.
Do
They're
we
kinda
not? That's a very good point.
I don't know where they're from. There's a whole area of SJM that's not even explored yet. Like she could be making books for the rest of her lives.
And don't forget, there's a whole area of Twilight that was never explored as well. So there's things that have been alluded to. For example, the wolves aren't actually werewolves. They're just shifters that chose the wolf form because of their legends. And there were actual werewolves. Yeah. So it's perfectly reasonable to say that there'd be other types of shifters.
I want it to kind of,
werewolves.
In my head, be a Sookie Stackhouse kind of reality.
Yes.
Like, don't you want that?
I'd love that.
In Sookie Stackhouse, for anyone who doesn't know, this is a spoiler for, I think, the first 2 or 3 books, but you find this out, like, fairly quickly. So, like, there are vampires, obviously, and in the beginning of the book, that's all Sookie knows is that there are vampires, but there are also werewolves, and there are also shifters, and there are also were-tigers and were-leopards, so it's like, you can be aware, and if you're aware, you can only turn into that one thing, and you typically run in some kind of group or pack or something that's based on like what that animal is, because you have that kind of nature. But then if you're a shifter, a true shifter, you can turn into any animal that you've ever seen. So you can look like anything. So like there's a very prominent character who's a shifter and you don't find out until a little later, but he can turn into a fly or turn into a dog, and he does this and like spies around all the people around town or whatever. But they're much more rare, true shifters.
And obviously there are fairies.
Yes, there are also fairies and like weird monsters from Greek
Mm.
mythology. There's a minotaur at one point. There's all kinds of weird shit.
Witches,
Yes.
ghosts, people that can see ghosts. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
That's fancy.
And the vampires have a whole government. Like all the
They
different
do.
groups have whole governments. And it's like really, it's actually a really well laid out world for the fact that the books themselves are like very formulaic and like not that like well done, honestly. But like the world building is fantastic.
So it would be really interesting to see Twilight take that on, because obviously we've got the Volturi, but what else is there?
They can't be the only governing
They're
body
not going to be
in
the
the world.
only. They can't be.
Especially like, so there's them, and then we know there's shifters, but like the Quileute tribe is so they're so isolated. There have to be other shifter tribes or whatever. There could be, I mean, are there shifter tribes
Well,
in cities? Like, are there gangs? Like, what's going on?
well, we know that Emily, Sam's
Oh yeah.
wife, isn't actually a Quileute. She comes from another tribe.
Yeah.
So totally not out of the realm of possibility that there are other tribes that have shifters, and perhaps they're different. They're not wolves.
Yeah. Perhaps.
They could be cats.
That'd be dope.
I want cats.
Eagles. Oh,
Like big cats, like big pies. Like big pies and peggies, just like
Yes.
strutting around.
That's what I want.
yeah, you want a bigger pie that would scratch you.
No, it'll be nice. It'll be a nice.
You could like ride him to work, like down like the streets of Paris.
That would save the planet, really,
So
if
much
you think
money on
about
the
it.
metro too.
Yeah, there'd be poop everywhere though.
But that's fine. If you run fast enough away, you don't have to clean it up.
That's not how that works. As someone who lives in the city, that's not how it works at all.
The delusion is creeping in, guys.
Like,
I'm tired. It's late at night.
yeah.
We have tea to look at.
We do.
Oh yeah.
We do. We have a whole chat to go after this. We're gonna do our girly bestie chats.
All right. Well, I think we should close this up then. To get us started, thank you guys for talking to me about Midnight Sun, even though I am talking based on what I read 5 years ago, and me only read 100 pages.
I barely spoke at all.
It was me, bitches. I read the book this time.
So we had a really fun time listening to Molly's TED Talk tonight.
Yes.
Anytime.
I would listen to you speak forever.
I really would.
I also love that you say ma'am instead of like mum, and it makes me like happy.
I'd always listen to you guys too.
Aww.
Well, I think that's the perfect place to put a pin in it. Real quick, what are you reading this week, Molly?
I need to read The Assassin's Blade because I haven't read it.
Same.
And we were supposed to start Hour of Fire on Monday, and it's now Thursday. So,
Were we?
yes. So I
God.
need to quickly read The Assassin's Blade, which I'm going to start tonight and hopefully finish tomorrow, and then start Hour of Fire. And then I think I am going to read the Ali Hazelwood novellas, because that's all I've got left to read to catch up in preparation for her age gap romance that's coming out this year. Guys,
I'm
she's got
so
an age gap.
excited. We're getting an Elsie Silver age gap too, though.
We
not?
are. It is the year of the age gaps.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
What about you guys? What are we reading? Iron Flame.
So I will be taking Iron Flame out for its customary walks this week. I don't like to, let it get too much cabin fever. It needs to go out and see the world a bit.
Needs the sunlight, 5 a day.
So hopefully I'll make a little progress on Iron Flame. But what I'm actually focused on is I need to finish my reread of The Price of Innocence, and then
Oh crap, we got that.
Protection, because we have that arc piece we need to do before it comes out. So and then we also are going to have SJ on the pod. So we have some work to do. So
Lads, Lads, Crimson's joining us for Air of Fire.
Yes,
She's joining
and
in.
I am also.
She is.
I am
She
gonna start
is.
here. It's one of my Air of Fire is one of my favorites in the series, so I gotta jump in. I will probably skip Tower of Dawn though. I'm just warning you now.
Don't blame me.
Okay. So that's me. Emmy, what are you reading this
Emmy.
week?
I'm having a really good time with my TBR. I think my TBR for this month, like the TBR jar came through, so I know I need to read Assassin's Blade and Air of Fire. I'll probably do Assassin's Blade this week. On my sort of like list, I've just finished Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. I finished that this morning. So good.
Mm,
So good.
nice.
I would say 4-star, maybe not a 5, but definitely a 4, and that's high for me.
All right.
What do I have on my radar this week? I have Butcher and Blackbird on my radar.
Yes.
I have the Ember and the Ashes book.
Yes.
That was the first one.
Yes.
Is on the list.
Amazing. Yep.
I have Heavenly Bodies on my list this month.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of what else I have. I have The Blanket Cats, which is a translated fiction. I haven't quite decided which one I'm going to pick up first. I might do Assassin's Blade, but I'm just like feeling in the vibe for Butcher and Blackbird next. So that could be
Nice.
the next couple of days.
How many books have we read so far in March? Because I think I'm up to 6, 5,
1,200.
5. Well, 5.
I still would like to exercise my Fifth Amendment right.
I don't know. Hold on.
As long as you're having a good time, that's all that counts, babe. I'm just
Yeah,
curious
I've read-
about Emmy's.
2.
I've been playing a lot of video games is the real answer. I've been
Amazing.
playing Well, and I've been playing Hogwarts Legacy. I actually finished all of the Merlin trials and all of the demiguise statues, and I finished I think all the landing platforms, so I just have to finish the balloons, and then I'm gonna finish out the story.
Round of applause for Crimson.
That is
What a
some
slay. Go you. I need to go back to Hogwarts Legacy. I was like
haven't
really
played
into it for a while and then haven't played it in ages, which kind of tends to be what happens. But I've been
on
playing
my,
The Sims.
It's the other games that I've been so into Hello Kitty Adventure Island for like weeks. I say weeks, it's only been out a couple of weeks, but like at least 2 weeks now. Almost 2 weeks. I have been just like thinking about Hello Kitty Adventure Island like consistently.
It does look really good, to be fair.
It's so fun. It's
It
like
does look good.
a little bit like Animal Crossing with like actual quests to do.
Mhm.
Do you
And you get to meet
know?
all the characters. Some of it's underwater. And you've got like a stamina bar and stuff.
Ugh.
Do
It's
you
so good.
know, every time you talk about Hello Kitty Adventure, what I think about is I think about that episode of South Park where all the boys are playing, I think like Call of Duty or World of Warcraft, like some really intense game, and Butters like is also gaming, and he's like, "Oh no, but I'm playing Hello Kitty Adventure," and it makes me giggle so much.
It's
I
so
love
good,
that.
guys. You know, you can play it with people. Like if you guys got Hello Kitty Adventure Island, we could all play together.
That's cute. Yeah, I'm
We
into
should
the
get
idea, but I don't know if I have time.
We should pick up Dreamlight Valley again.
Time for me.
I always make
Yes, we
time for
should.
you.
Has a new realm in Dreamlight Valley not
It
just opened?
has. It
With
has.
like Jasmine in it.
It has, yeah.
I don't know if that's gonna make me want to play it anymore because I haven't like finished unlocking everything in the first bloody realm yet.
Take your time, babe. Not a rush.
I just want to mine things.
Valid.
I just smash rocks every time I go on there.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Anyway,
All right.
well, thank you guys for hanging out.
Always.
Always.
And anyone else, if you're looking for us, we are Fic Fiction on all social media platforms. We are also now on Threads, so come hang out with us there.
We're having the best time, guys.
You will not likely know which one of us is posting at the time.
Unless we tell you.
Yeah, for the more unhinged things, we'll probably see.
Or not.
But
You
Or
can say.
not, yeah. As usual, our all of our links are in the description below. And also, if you haven't caught last week's episode yet, you should go and listen to last week's episode because we had Sophie Snow, we had an author. And for any maybe indie authors or even traditionally published authors that are listening, and if you want to come on and chat with us, even just to use it to promote your books, feel free to link in with us because we would love to have some more people on the podcast as well.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay. I'll love and leave you guys. Have a lovely, lovely couple of days. I'll talk to you in
Yes.
5 minutes. But I hope everyone listening has a good week.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Bye.